Hello, and welcome to Into Studio with Dole Designs. Today we're going to show you how to finish off a leather necklace with your coil ends and your hook and eye clasp. So let's get started. Today you're going to need a chasing hammer, a bench block, a sanding paper or a vintage relieving block, steel file, flat nose pliers, flush cutters, of course our safety goggles, the chasing hammer, the graduated pliers, and last but not least, our chain nose pliers. For material, we're going to have our leather. Now for mine it's a 3mm leather and round. Super new glue. I've tried several different types of glues for leathers and stones, etc. This one I got at Rio Grande. I absolutely love this one. And again, I've tried several. It's very inexpensive, and you can get it at other jewelry stores as well. I believe I may have gotten it at Rings and Things also. So that's a really good one. Now for our coils, you're going to need two 3-inch pieces of, and in my case I'm using 16 gauge sterling silver dead soft. If you're using copper, same thing, you would use a 16 gauge dead soft copper round wire, and this is round also. I'll move the bench block out of the way so you can see. And then for our hooking ends, which will be figure eights, we're using a 1 1/4 inch piece of the 16 gauge wire and a 1 1/2 inch piece of the 16 gauge wire. And again, it's all the 16 gauge dead soft round silver is what I'm using today. And then for our hook, you're going to need 4 inches of the 16 gauge dead soft round silver wire. So all of our wire is the same, just different lengths. We're going to get started with doing the coil ends, and I have one complete, so I'm just going to show you one today, and it'll save on time, and then the other one is just a mirror opposite of that. So to get started, we're going to take our graduated chain nose pliers, and since we're using 3mm leather today, I know that on these chain nose pliers, this end here is going to give me this 3mm center diameter that I need. If you have one of these graduated chain nose pliers, look on your packaging or where you got it, or you can actually measure it with a micrometer and find out which one of these has the inside diameter you need before making several ends. You can also test it out. Again, measuring it with a micrometer would be the best. You can also just practice with a few pieces of inexpensive copper to get the diameter that you want and make sure which one gives you the size looping you're wanting. So for today we're using this one. So let's get started by taking your wire and putting it in between, and we're going to be looping it around this one here. And when you're putting your wire in between and getting ready to make a loop, make sure that you don't come up over like that, or even just a little bit, because that'll put a kink in your wire. Always when you're making your loops, come down to where it's either flush or right below that point right there. So we're going to come around and make our loop, keeping this tightened within the pliers, and just continue to spiral around. And then that is going to give us our coil portion of this. And we get that to the point we need. I always like to have the end of that pretty much in the front. I'm going to take this curve right here, and you can always, if you want a longer coil end, bring it all the way up to the front and just cut a longer piece of wire. I'm going to go ahead and start my little curve right there, and I just do that with my fingers and curve that up. You can do that at the end when we start your loop, but I find starting it like that really helps. So then this is in here pretty tight, so just go ahead and turn that until you can get that removed. And there's our coil end. Now to make your loop, find the end, and on my other one I did it the same way with this section right here. And you can always use like a baling pliers, depending on how large you want your loop. You can use chain nose pliers if you'd like. And then just bring that around. Like that. Then in order to cut it, you can cut it right there if you can get your flush cutters in there, but I usually bring it out just a little bit, so I make sure I don't nick any other wires when I do cut it. And where are they? There we go. And then I just come in here at about that point. You don't want to go too far in. And I come out almost to the edge of your coil right there, if you can see that. And you can always cut more. And now, right here, since I am wanting that to be a square flush cut, I have my flush cutters positioned the wrong way. So I'm going to position them this way. And then that'll give me a square cut on this side. So that's kind of a little tip. This side is going to give you more of an angled cut. This side's going to give you more of a flat flush cut. And just cut that right there and see where that's kind of squared off just perfectly flat. And since we moved that out a little bit, that gives us an opportunity to take your steel nose, or I'm sorry, take your steel file and run that along that edge to make that smooth. And I usually go one step further and take the relieving block with this, or sandpaper, and sand that point right there. And then buff it. Now we're going to take that back into position. Like this. And then I take my small chain nose pliers. I grab a hold of that end and just bend it slightly to where it curves down into your spring. Then with each one of my springs here, we'll take our bench block and then hammer the ends of these. Now, I showed you a chasing hammer earlier, so you can use a chasing hammer or any hammer with a flat end there. I'm going to use this one because it has a little more weight to it. And then you just hammer those ends. You also put your any findings like this, you can also put in a tumbler. You do not have to hammer if you don't want the hammered look. You could just put them in the tumbler and that would harden it. And I put mine in there for about 20 to 45 minutes, depending on what type wire I'm using and the thickness. Now I'm going to use my heavier hammer on this one again. Most likely to get my fingers too, because this has a lot bigger end there. And then there we have our coils. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these coils on so I can show you that part, and then we'll make the connectors. So for our coils, we're going to take our super glue, and this is a jeweler's super glue. It's not just, it's made by Eurotool. And just all you need is a slight dab. And not everyone does this. The coil ends actually get crimped on here also, and that's what I want to show you. So you could just go with the crimp also, but I like that extra security to know that these are not going to come apart. You slide that up in there, and then that's when you go ahead and crimp, and you can crimp this down pretty tightly, the end of your coil down onto the leather. So that alone actually secures that end. But I like that extra security. We're going to do the same thing at the other end with your glue. There we go. Sometimes it's hard to see it coming out on that black leather. And we're going to put our coil, or our leather, right up in the coil. You either use your chain nose or your flat nose to do this. Either one will work. And go ahead and tighten that crimp down. And there we go. So now we have both ends of this done. I'm going to go ahead and put our figure 8 connectors on. Now on the figure 8 connectors, remember I had you cut two different sizes of wire. And the larger one is simply because we're going to make a larger loop where the clasp is going to hook onto. So all we're doing is a simple figure 8. So for this one, I'm going to use both of them to be this size right here. Then on the second one, I'll have to use this size and then one larger for the other end for the hook to go through. So again, make sure you're flush here or below. And just go all the way around. And then on the other one, I want my wire a little bit flusher at the end and squared off. So I am going to use my flush cutters and go ahead and square that off now. And then going in the opposite direction, we'll go ahead and do our figure 8. So you're doing the same thing. You're just going to coil that up. And then there you have your figure 8 connector. And then we're going to put those ends a little closer in, but we'll wait until we hammer it, because when you hammer harden, it tends to spread out a little bit, so we'll have to do that again. So. Now on this one, we're going to make the same loop on one side, and that was this one here. But then on the other side, we're going to make a larger loop. And I may have too much wire cut here, and we'll just go ahead and fix that once we get our loops finished. So now I'm going to the other side and making it a larger loop, and actually I'm just going to make it a bit larger than that one, so I'll go down to this one here. And especially since I do have enough wire. Okay. And so there we have it here. Now if you don't want that gap there, you can bring it on down, but I think it gives it kind of a decorative look. So now we're going to hammer harden these, and again, you can always put them in a tumbler, but I like the hammer hardened look. Gives it a nice texture. Now these are a little bigger, so I'm going to go ahead and use the chasing hammer. More room to not hit my fingers. Sorry for the camera moving when we do that. Okay, there is that one, and we're doing this other one the same way. You can do the whole thing. You don't have to do just one section of it. Okay, steady that camera. I have a little stool that I normally use to do all my hammering on, but I wanted to get everything on the desk so I could show it to you right here in one screen. Now as we connect these, that's when we can start tightening each one of the loops. So on one end, I'm going to put the larger one, and this is going to be where your hook actually loops into. Anytime you're opening a loop like this, don't tighten it this way. Pull it outward. And then we're going to hook it onto here. So this is already on our necklace. And then just come as close as you can to that part right there. Okay. Now since I know I'm not going to be connecting anything to this one, I'm going to take the chain nose for this and do the same thing. Now when I hammered that out, it made my end not flush. So I'm going to make that flush. And then come back over with it. There we go. And that will be where our hook hooks onto. Now we'll go ahead and hook the other eye on the other end. I keep alternating between the chain nose and the flat nose. These are the flat nose. Again, come as close as you can and touch the side so you have a sealed connection. Now I'm not going to seal this one yet because we're going to attach our hook to it, so I'll just open that up. And we're going to do our hook, and then we will have a completed necklace. To do your hook, there's several different ways. You can do a simple loop. You can make one a little more complex. The one we're going to do today is like this. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So you have 4 inches here. I'm going to come down just about an inch with your flat nose pliers. Bend that just a straight out angle. And then take whatever size loop that you want. Go ahead and position your either round nose or your graduated round nose like this. And then bring that back around. And you can use your fingers with this, or you can use a tool. Find it with a dead soft wire without it being hardened. It's just as easy to go ahead and pull that over with your fingers. And now it's going to look like this. Now on this, take your flat nose pliers, hold on to your loop, and hold on to it pretty tightly. And for this, I like to use the curved nose pliers, or curved chain nose, and then just bring that, bring that around. Continue to bring that around. Trying to keep this within a view of the camera. When you get about like that, you can actually kind of curve it with those. And then right there you can cut this portion off. And again, I want a flat end, so I'm going to put that up against there. Cut that off there. I'm going to sand that a little bit with the steel file. And also with the relieving block. And buckler. It's going to be tucked in, but again, I always like to smooth those ends. You can take your chain nose around curved nose and press that in there. Use the flat nose there. Here we go. So this is the part that's going to hook onto your eye. This is still part of our hook that we're making. And then you're going to come up about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, however you want it in decoration wise. And you're going to bend that out just slightly at an angle, about like this. And then we're going to take the largest portion of our graduated pliers for our hook and bring it back around like this. Now if you wanted a larger hook, you could come up further with that. We're also going to make a little loop, a decorative loop with this. Come down about right here where your connection meets with your loop. Go ahead and cut that. I want it flush, so we'll go like this. And it should look like that. Now we're going to put our little decorative loop in. I'm going to use the smallest now, right there. I'm metal smithing and silver smithing today, so my hands, excuse them, are getting dirty with all the flux and stuff. Alright. And we're working with a lot of copper too, so it definitely gets a little bit dirty when it burns before I clean it. Alright, you're going to bend that loop around. And they're pretty tight, so just wiggle around till it comes out. And there we have a beautiful decorative loop, or hook. Go ahead and hammer harden that. Now on this one I hammer harden right here, and then I hammer harden my loop. And I'm going to use the chasing hammer for that. Do both sides, flatten that out evenly. And then our loop. It might be easier to get the loop with the other hammer. There we go. We're going to hook this on and we will have a necklace. Please be sure, if you like our videos, to subscribe to them. Click the subscribe button and the like and share. We will be doing a series of videos. Anything regarding designing jewelry. We weave, we wrap, we metalsmith, silversmith, cold forge, and bead. And make a lot of our own findings that I'll be showing you like this here. So again, please be sure to subscribe so that you can get notification of all of our videos as they're posted. Make sure that that touches when you hook that on here, so it's nice and secure. And there you go. You have your own necklace with the leather cord and your coil ends. This is also very beautiful in copper. You can also use texture hammers to texture your, when you hammer, to texture your metal. There's so many different things that you can do. Thank you, and please subscribe.